Oh, hello and welcome back to my channel. It's Tuesday morning and I'm having to fight Socks for my chair, my reading chair again. You sit there, Socks. Right. Okay, I thought I'd do a tiny book haul because books have fallen into my lap the last few days and I need to catch up. How are you doing, Socks? He's all right. Okay, now, first of all, I've just had a lovely present in the post. This is from Julian, who is a Facebook friend and a viewer of this channel. And he says, "Dear Paul, sight of the egg and bacon flan that you made prompted me to gift the enclosed to you." Nigel Slater, which I haven't read actually, but I've meant to and wanted to for a long time. And I know people who have read lots of his books and like the way that he veers between memoir and recipes. Socks, you can't eat he's eating the letter that came with it. You can't do that, you don't eat letters. He's never done that before. Are you just very hungry? So I'm looking forward to that. There's a Christmas book, isn't there? Nigel Slater Christmas book, and one about autumn, which I think is newer. Anyway, so that's on the pile now. And then the other day, we had our day out in, Socks. We had our Sunday in Chester, which you might have seen the video about, the ramshackle home movie of us mooching about in Chester and going to bookshops and charity shops and having Sunday lunch. And my battery ran out on my phone halfway through the day. Anyway, I ended up with a small haul of books. First of all, the Paris novel by Ruth Reichel, which my friend Rosie gave me because she'd read it and she'd enjoyed it. We both seem to like novels set in Paris and exchange them occasionally. Ripping open the envelope, she read Celia's last words to her. There was just one line written on the paper: "Go to Paris." The last word anyone would use to describe Stella St. Vincent is adventurous. She's perfectly comfortable with the familiar, strict routines of her life as a copy editor. A copy editor could have had a go at that sentence, or at least the way I read it. Or at least she is until she receives a mysterious note from her late mother and a one-way plane ticket to Paris. Alone and overwhelmed in a foreign city, Stella... I shouldn't read the blurbs. It's nice enough, but it makes it bland. And I read the first page the other day. Paris, 1983. Listen to this. Lilacs, rain, and a hint of bitter chocolate. Stella sniffed the air as she entered the small shop, enjoying the golden light that enfolded her. A bell pealed, an old-fashioned sound that gave her the oddest feeling, as if she had stepped off the Paris sidewalk and straight out of time. Why isn't that on the back of the book or the front of the book? Let the writing sell the book, not some bland blurb. I keep going on about blurbs, don't I? I keep going on about the way books are presented to the world. See, the cover's nice. The cover's nice, that kind of Matisse pastiche. A Matisse pastiche. But I would really capitalise on the writing itself. Anyway, then in, I think, Oxfam, I picked up this. I haven't read all the P.G. Wodehouse books. I've read a pile of them. But I was aware that there'd been this authorised sequel by Sebastian Faulks. Somebody I've read some books by. I can't think what. But I was intrigued that he'd been able to to go back and write a sequel. What are you doing, Socks? Don't lick books. Are you just hungry? And in fact, this book has a quote from inside on the back, just like I was saying. It was a panting and lightly perspiring B. Worcester who then consulted his wristwatch to find that it was in fact 6 o'clock, the appointed hour at which I was to throw off the bonds of slumber and rise to tackle my new duties. This was a dashed sight harder than it sounds. Wasn't a great quote. But the idea of it being a full-length adventure in that world is cheering, I think. It's like the sequels to Map and Lucia as well, written by various people, some of which I've really liked. Or, of course, Sherlock Holmes. I really like the ones where they meet up across different books, although I don't think Jeeves and Wooster have met Holmes and Watson. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think they should do. Jeeves and Wooster could meet Fu Manchu. That would be interesting. And then a memoir, Sue Perkins, which I hadn't been bothered about reading because, as you know, I am really fed up with celebrity books, celebrity memoirs, celebrity kids' books, celebrity novels, all that stuff. And there are very few exceptions I make. I'll make exceptions for Sheila Hancock, although not her last one because it wasn't so good. I'll make it wasn't as good. Julian Clary gets a free-ish pass, and so does Bob Mortimer and Richard E. Grant. And my friend Jamie was telling me about this one because he'd worked with her on radio, and he'd read this, and it sounds really interesting. There's a kind of a big epiphany about how she'd been and a health crisis, and about her kind of character change in a way. It sounds ridiculous, but about realizing why you'd been the way you'd been, and that kind of fascinates me. So we'll see, and I'll let you know when I get to this. And finally, in this small book haul, although it's growing to quite a pile, is Cured by Lowell Tolhurst, who's one of the founding members of the band The Cure. And this is the tale of two imaginary boys. Now, I was thinking about The Cure because of all the recent publicity about their new LP and live concerts, and just talk about them after, it's been quiet for so many years. I was never a massive fan. I knew all their stuff, and I had LPs. I had the LPs, really, of the late 1980s when I was at college. All my friends loved them. All my slightly gothy, hippie-ish friends at school loved The Cure. I had lots of goth friends. And they just remind me of that time of being a teenager, really. Can you get comfy? He looks like he's sitting in protest. I should lower this so you can see him. That's a good idea. You want to see the cat more than me. Anyway, Jeremy was then playing records downstairs in the living room. He was playing all these singles from the 1980s and 70s, but mostly the 80s the other day. And although I don't think he played The Cure, all of that punk, late punk and early new wave stuff made me think about them some more. And I was looking up just to see, I wonder if there's a good book about The Cure. Because, as I've said before, I really love rock biographies and dip into them every now and again. 2 or 3 a year, usually. And this year I've read about Squeeze, and I've read about Bernie Taupin and Elton John. And actually, I'd love to read about being a punk and a goth and eschewing the glitz and glamour of the 1980s and staying a goth and staying a bit miserable. There's that wonderful clip. I keep watching it when it comes up, when The Cure are inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And there's a very, very American, over-the-top, very vivacious interviewer who asks Robert Smith, is he as excited as she is by his induction? And he just very dryly says, by the sounds of it, no. And it's the most cutting thing ever. I don't even think she knows it's cutting, but it really is. The idea of never getting overexcited, even if you're being inducted into a Hall of Fame, is blissful and very goth, but it's also very Generation X and very northern, although they're not northerners at all. pouring piss on somebody's chips is kind of funny, really. When people get over-enthused and carried away with themselves, carried away by the hype. We're back to that theme again. And it's not a good idea. Don't get carried away by the hype. Although I'm as prone to it as anybody else, and my book piles this end of the year are littered with books that got a certain amount of pushing, and then I had to go and buy, didn't I? So this is why I've got things like Yellowface or The Ministry of Time or God knows how many other really, really hyped novels this year that I still haven't managed to get to. And as I say, I do trust my own readerly instincts and knowing what I want to read about more than that. So when I kind of reach out in my mind and think, I want to read about The Cure, there's a reason for it somewhere, and I will find something in that book that will be nourishing or useful or instructive or illuminating. I know it's there. Much, much better following those instincts, as are we all, I think. Anyway, and gifts, of course, getting sent things because somebody thinks you'd like to read this, or this is the moment because you're making egg and bacon flan, so this book is the one you should read, it's really magical, actually, to be gifted things like that. Right, I'm gonna go because we need to get on. I have written my chapter for the morning. It's almost 1,800 words, or just over 1,800 words, which is the kind of the average I need to hit each day to fulfill this particular deadline. I am thinking and working on about 6 different projects, all at different stages of development and finishing, which is too much. I know it's too much, and I'm trying not to be irritable at various points, but I will try my best to be good-natured and smile, even when things are annoying. But I feel like I'm making progress with all of this stuff, which is good. Oh, Socks, you're falling. Cats aren't meant to be... Oh, you're meant to have good balance. There you are. See, he's doing one project at a time, which just involves sitting on my lap and concentrating on helping me. That's Socks's project, isn't it? You're going to look in the camera. Look at the camera. Have a look at everyone. Socks, look over there. Okay, everyone. I will see you again quite soon. Lots of love. Bye-bye.